So we have a couple of people here, so maybe you can introduce yourselves. And women's first, ladies first, so Egle.
Oh, ladies first, sure. I don't mind that. Me and Mikkel, we are seven-figure sellers, hoping to connect with all possible sellers from Europe. And that's why we're actually facing you here right now in Zoom. Because being a seven-figure seller, we know that the most value really comes out of getting to know other sellers and really learning deeply how they build up their processes, how they conduct a product search, how they do their advertising. The reason why we want to get to you guys, and first we're offering some value by Anthony Confrancesco, and we're really hoping to meet you guys this year or next year in Tallinn, because we're bringing together so many 7-8-figure sellers. Me and Mikkel, we're actual sellers. We are not like conference organizers or event organizers. We're just trying to get people who do business eye-to-eye level. Mikkel, do you want to add something?
Yeah, so this webinar, thank you, Tony, for hosting us, first of all, and giving us opportunity to speak to your people as well. Very, very honored. Haven't met many Finnish sellers, especially before. And yeah, we are organizing a conference in Estonia on the 4th of June. It's an Amazon Sellers Conference with speakers from all over the world, with sellers flying in from different places. We're inviting you as well. And this is like a webinar to kind of introduce a little bit and give like some practical value as far as selling on Amazon goes. And for this, we have Anthony Confrancesco from Data Dive. He will also be speaking in our conference in Estonia, but today he'll be talking about how to manage experiments. I don't know exactly what the email was, what went out before. I think it was first said, there was a little mix up on the theme of the topic, was said PickFoo case study tests, but it's gonna be brand experiments instead. And but it's gonna be practical and have case studies as well, as Anthony said, for the presentation. So Anthony has also worked himself in Amazon for a while, then done like a graphics agency. Then he worked as a business development person for PickFoo for a very long time, and really brought like split testing to a bigger audience in the Amazon space. And now he joined Brandon Young in Data Dive and helps bring testing to the new level. But maybe Anthony, you can take it from here.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm really excited. Thanks for the introduction. Should I just jump into the slides and we'll get into the presentation?
Yes, let's get to the interesting stuff, the data, the analysis, the A/B testing, everything that makes our life so much better.
Amazing, amazing. And so this is going to be really good. This is all about manage your experiments inside of Seller Central. What I want to first do before I jump into the presentation, because I've been working in this for about 3 years, working on manager experiments, and I'm always curious to know who here knows about like what is manager experiments. Just say in the chat, like, have you heard about it? Anyone? Yeah. I guess I don't know how active we're going to be in the chat here, so I'll just ask, like, who here is like, is anyone at all really integrating manager experiments into your strategy on Amazon? Like, anyone here actively using, like, one person? And I think probably, okay, this is where I'll jump into the presentation. I think probably the answer is that very few, if any, sellers are using this tool. It's been around for 3 years, and the whole point of this presentation is to talk about why it's actually super valuable, and you should really be thinking about it into your strategy. So this is all best practices for manager experiments. So just a real quick, about myself, kind of like what's my background. I've been in the e-com industry for about 5 years. I used to work at Amazon. I ran a creative agency for 2 years called Virtuous Graphics, got a lot of experience optimizing different clients' campaigns. We exited that business in 2019, and then I joined PickFoo. And so everything that I did at PickFoo was all around helping our bigger clients figure out their creative strategies when it came to visuals, right? And creating educational content. And then again, doing the same thing at Data Dive. So just really love, like, what I really love seeing is all the different business types. I've got to work with basically all the aggregators out there, small sellers, large sellers. And then I've also sold a bunch of products online, sold services online, and that's me. So this is a quick agenda for what we're going to cover today. I like to start all of my talks with an essential framework. So this is going to be like, what is manage your experiments? Why should you care? What are the different components of it? Once you understand from a high level what is this tool, then we're going to go into the best practices, right? These are the things that you should be thinking about implementing into your business. And this is where we're going to go over the case studies, right? Examples of where this has and hasn't worked in the past. And then what we're going to do is I always like to wrap up as well with future considerations. So it's not just about what's happening right now. It's about what do we got to be looking forward to what's happening in the future, right? So that we can kind of build our teams, build our processes to handle and be anticipating what's going to come down the pipeline. So let's start off first with the essential framework, right? This is what is manage your experiments and, why should you care? Now, I just pulled this definition from Google. I'm not going to read it. I think most people here already know what split testing is, what A/B testing is. But just for a little review, right? You've got an A group, you've got a B group. You're testing something, let's say for a website, it could be something like a checkout button. And so what you're going to do is you're going to make one variant of the button. You're going to make it one color, like let's say blue. And then you're going to make an alternate variant. You're going to make it orange, right? And the whole point of this split test, you have an A group and you have a B group, is you're going to show to 50% of the people who come to that page at random, you're going to show them one version, and the other half of the group, you're going to show at random the other version. And the whole point, obviously, is to go and figure out if you change the color of the button, can you get more add to carts? Can you get more sales? Right. And so that's obviously a very high level overview of what A/B testing is. What a lot of sellers don't know is that 3 years ago, Amazon released its own split testing tool. And this actually lives inside of Seller Central. It's called Manage Your Experiments, and it's totally free, right? Anyone can use it, and you can deploy it across pretty much all of your ASINs. And when they rolled out this tool, they first rolled it out with the ability to test main image. They first rolled it out with the ability to test A+ content, and then later rolled out main image and title, right? So there's 3 different asset classes that you can test using MYE. Now, before MYE, people have been split testing on Amazon since the very beginning, right? The OG sellers out there might remember tools like Splitly or Listing Dojo. And then you also have alternates like PickFoo, which is, I put split testing in quotes because it's not really testing on the platform, but you're testing to like a market research group, right? But still very, very helpful. Splitly, right, not around anymore. I'm not sure if Listing Dojo is, but now these have, you can use manage your experiments inside for what Splitly and Listing Dojo used to do. The real key takeaway about all of this, and like, why am I talking so much about manage your experiments? So I've been using manage your experiments for about 3 years. When they first rolled it out on A+ content, our agency would create alternate versions of it. With that being said, it's like I have been talking to people. I'd go to masterminds, right? I'd talk to all of my friends that were agency owners, but almost all of them in the industry. And I'd be like, okay, who actually out there is using this tool, right? Who's actually run some tests? And so like I would ask month after month after month. And the key takeaway is up until now, I'd still say very, very few sellers are using manager experiments at all. And I think even fewer have it like they're running manager experiments at all times for all the ASINs in their portfolio. Most people are not doing that. And I think the whole point of this presentation is that they're really leaving a lot on the table. So this is actually how to set it up. And part of the appeal of this tool is that it's not only is it free, but it's so quick to set up. So this is actually what the UI looks like inside of Seller Central. Everyone is always asking, okay, where do you find it? You're going to go to the brands tab, and then you're going to come over to manage experiments, right? So navigate to the brands tab. And then once you're inside, this is what the dashboard is going to look like. Very simple. It's going to tell you the number of active experiments you have. It's going to tell you the total number of experiments you've had running. And then obviously I have some privacy blocks here, so it's not showing the product, but it's going to show you basically the experiment, your reference ASIN, and then the start and end dates, right? Now, once you go through, right, you're going to have to go and click create new experiment. And then you're going to have to choose an eligible ASIN, right? So based on the experiment type, you're going to have to click like, do you want to do a main image experiment? Do you want to do a title, or do you want to do an A+? So when you click on one of the asset classes, then it's going to display a list of eligible ASINs that you have. Now, really important to know is that not all of your ASINs might be eligible for all tests. If you go through and read the program terms that Amazon puts out, they say that it's related to, oh, do you have enough traffic on the listing? And if you don't have an eligible ASIN, then they recommend that you run more PPC. In my experience, though, sometimes you'll have a product that performs very well, and for whatever reason it doesn't show up. I don't know any reason. I mean, I can't figure out why that happens, but it seems to have gotten better over like the past few months. But when they first came out with like for main image testing, most ASINs weren't eligible, but now they should be. Okay, that was long. So once you go through, you just basically select the ASIN, and then here you actually set up the experiment. It's the easiest thing to set up. You just put in an experiment name, you set the duration. The minimum time frame is 4 weeks. They really want you to go 6 to 8 weeks. You click a start date, and then you put in your hypothesis, and then you upload your images, right? Now, that's all not that exciting, but what's really cool is when you get to your results, right? And so this is really where, right, setting up the experiment literally takes, I don't know, like 5 minutes. You literally just type in a hypothesis and upload your images. The thing is, to get to this point of actually getting the data, you have to wait about a week to get it. That's like Amazon for you, right? Why is the data not real time? I have no idea. Sometimes you have to wait longer than a week. It really just depends. But once you get there, it's all worth it in the end, because you get this little dashboard which shows you the timeline, but this is what you really want to look at. And obviously the products are blurred out here. In this example here that is showing on the screen, it's showing one that performed like no option really performed much better than the other. This will happen sometimes. Sometimes you'll get gains that are a lot bigger. But what I really like is it's giving you very detailed metrics on your conversion rate, units sold, and sales, and how that compares from one version to the other. Now, as you're seeing here, the increase in conversion is like almost nothing, right? This is like almost the exact same. But sometimes you'll see this and it'll be like 5%. Sometimes it'll be 3%. Sometimes you'll get really excited and it'll be like 15%. So we'll get into some of the case study examples in just a minute, but it's giving you this chart, right? Pretty straightforward stuff. The other thing that's really helpful, and this is like very good if you're maybe you're doing work for clients, what you can also get here at the bottom is it's giving you this confidence interval. So based on their statistics, what is the most likely, what's the worst case and best case scenario that if you implement this new image onto your listing at its current volume, it's going to give you some kind of level of increase. And so this can kind of be helpful for getting an idea of like, okay, if I actually see, right, like we've seen this before where it's been like, okay, this is going to increase your sales this year by, you know, $75,000. That can be like kind of a helpful metric just to see as like, to see if it actually happens in real life, right? To go and benchmark against that. So here's a few things that you want to keep in mind about manage your experiments. First, not all ASINs might be eligible, right? If you have a brand new launch product, it's not getting a lot of traffic to the listing, you might have to have it be a little bit more mature before you can start testing. The other thing that's really important is that the minimum time frame for testing is 4 weeks, right? So this is really, really key because as you can see, when you're setting up the test, it takes like just a few minutes to go set up the test, but it's a lot of hurry up and wait, right? You go and build out these creative assets and then you upload it and then you don't even get your results for 1 to 2 weeks. And then the test isn't even finished for 4 weeks. What's really important about this though, is that, well, we'll get into this into the later part of the presentation, but the data might actually flip from like in the first 4 weeks to the last 4 weeks. And so even though the minimum time frame is 4 weeks, they really want you to test it like 6 to closer to 10 weeks to get a really accurate test. And then as well, as I've already mentioned, there's time required to get approval. So you don't just upload this and it starts. Like a human being has to go and approve it. And then you're not going to get the results right away. It's going to take probably about a week, sometimes a little bit longer, depending on the example. So this is that's the essential framework, right? Hope, you know, for those of you who haven't interacted with the tool, as you can see, it's very easy. It's very straightforward. This is where we're going to get into the best practices. So like I said earlier, there's 3 different asset classes that you can test on Manage Your Experiments. You can do main image, you can do title, and you can do A+ content. So these are the best practices. And again, this is based, if you come to the conference in Estonia, you're going to get a much more detailed presentation, which is all case studies, right? So if you're enjoying this, if you're thinking, hey, I'm learning some cool things here, just wait, because that one is much more in depth. But all of these examples here are based off of real world case studies as well. And some of them are going to be referenced on the different slides. But when we're talking about main image optimizations, right, when we're talking about creating an alternate version that we're hoping is going to do better, these are the themes that we want to kind of focus in, how to actually create an alternate. So one can be orientation of products, right? So maybe it's facing to the left, right? You're going to create an alternate to test, which is facing to the right. Another, which is eye candy. So imagine you're selling like a supplement and it's like flavored like something, and you're going to put a chocolate bar, onto the main image to kind of draw some eyes in, to give some indication as to what is actually inside of, the ingredients or something like that. Deciding whether or not to put packaging in the main image can be an alternate. If you have a wearable product, right, like a fashion item or something that is actually like showing the product in use, deciding whether or not to use a model, creating an alternate. Multi-pack items, anyone selling multi-pack items, this is very easy to do with just a designer. Go and create, okay, so we're going to change actually the orientation, the position of the multi-pack items in the main image. Very easy to do. And then the last one I have on here is vertical size, right? So if you're still putting your main image in square aspect ratio, you want to be actually putting it to be a little bit taller vertically, right? Because everything is going to be optimized for mobile. Your product is actually going to display a little bit larger than the competition on mobile and on desktop. So testing an alternate with a taller vertical size. The key takeaway, because I just went through a lot there, the key takeaway is it's kind of hard to know exactly what's going to perform better on a main image, right? A lot of the times you really just don't know. You're just trying something different. But if you try to think critically, right, from your customer's perspective about what's going to be eye-catching, right? Like they're searching through the page of search results. What's going to be like, their eyes are going to catch that. And then more importantly, what's going to give context from the first page of search results, right? Based on your keyword research, right? If I'm selling supplements and people are looking for a keyword, how can I reinforce that keyword visually, right? When they're seeing it from the first page of search results. So we're either trying to be more eye-catching or we're trying to give some context, right? The last little tip here, and this is a pretty good tip, but how you can actually leverage the hypothesis section. So basically, when you're putting this manager experiment test, when you're uploading it into Seller Central, a human being on the other end is approving this thing. And so if you're looking to kind of push the boundaries on terms of service, a good way to kind of get permission, right, because this is approved by a human, is when you're writing your hypothesis, don't say like, hey, I want to put this chocolate on this in front of this supplement bottle because it's going to be eye-catching and I'm going to get more sales, right? You don't want to say that, right? You want to say like, the hypothesis is that if I put chocolate in front of the supplement bottle, it's going to indicate that the ingredients are made with real chocolate. And that's going to give a better buying experience to the customer, right? The person at Amazon is going through some SOP on what to approve, what not to approve, right? And so if you say like, this is about customer centricity, this is about helping the customer, the person from Amazon is going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Because you got to think TOS is very vague intentionally because it's covering all of these products. And so they have all these account managers that are just trying to make a decision based on an SOP. And if you push it in the direction of like, okay, this is for the customer rather than for sales, you're more likely to get approved. Another good thing is like PickFoo is, I don't work at PickFoo anymore, but I'm still a big fan of the tool. I've been using it for years. It's legitimately a great way to validate in advance, right? Again, it's a bunch of hurry up and wait to actually do manager experiments. You got to wait 4 weeks. So before you upload, it can be a helpful tool to say like, is what I'm doing, does it make sense? Get some feedback before uploading. This is a good example. I don't just like to share good case studies. I also like to share the bad case studies. And this is actually from one of my personal products. I was doing a title optimization and I thought that this new title optimization was fantastic. And for some reference, I wasn't even like removing something from the title. I was just changing the positioning because I thought people would want to see this word up front. And so I created a manager experiment test. I created an alternate title, and then I dropped my unit session percentage by like 25% in a week. And then I had to like go and rebuild that. So what I'll say is that title optimization should be based on keyword data, like heavily based on keyword data. And again, this presentation is not about data dive, but like a legitimately good way is that you can go put the title into Battle of the Titles in Data Dive and see which one has more ranking juice. And if you have one that has better ranking juice in Battle of the Titles, test it against your current and it's probably going to do better. For A+ content, the best practice is, if you think about main image, extremely restrictive in terms of the elements that you can change. Title, even more so restrictive, and you only have so many characters to play with. With A+ content, there's many more avenues that you can test, right? Because it's so much more of a broad content type. So some recommendations, if you're going to your design team, you're going to your creative team, go to them and say, hey, if you have try a different option rather between text heavy and text light, right? So text heavy would be like a ton of text light would be almost all graphics. So go to your team and say, make us an alternate, right, between those two. Another really good one just to play with from an aesthetic standpoint is color variance, right? So you might have like the branding colors, right? All of these are matching the same kind of theme, but go and try an alternate version of your A+ color just in a different color palette, your A+ content rather, in a different color palette. Another one that I've had a lot of success with is order of information, right? So we've got these different modules in our A+ content. And so like maybe you have module 3, what does that actually look like if it's in the banner or vice versa? And think about, as someone's scrolling down the page, almost everyone's going to see the banner, right? The top part of the, you know, the above the fold, so to speak, part of your A+ content, but not everyone's going to make it to the bottom. So alternates of the order of information. The other two that I really like, one is brand story. I get questions a lot over the past few years of like, should I have the brand story in my A+ content? Should I not have it, you know, at the expense of putting in features of the product? The great news is you don't have to make that decision anymore, because you can just test it with Manage Your Experiments. And in some products, in some categories, a brand story is going to be really good. If your brand story is really good, maybe it's actually going to help. And so that is a really great option to test. And then last but not least is technical information, right? I've seen this work really well with like fashion products. Anything that requires a sizing guide, you'll put like image 2 or 3 in your gallery. You'll say, hey, go scroll down and see a full sizing guide, right? So you don't have enough space in your image to like do that. You don't want to occupy multiple images to cover these questions. So you put that additional technical information and you reference it, and it's down in your A+. So another great option that you can go and test there. So I think we're doing okay on time. I think we're going really quick, so that's fine. We're going to wrap up here with future considerations, and then we'll do a Q&A, but I think quick is better because it's condensed. So yeah, just some things I'm always trying, like the thing with Amazon is it's happening so fast. And if you're just reacting to everything as it's happening, you're probably not going to be in a really good spot to succeed. And so you want to kind of be looking just a few months, not like years in advance, but a few months at least down the road to think like, do I have the team in place? Do I have the strategy in place to accommodate these changes? And so one of the things I will say, as big of an advocate as I am about Manage Your Experiments, there have been some concerns about accuracy and timeliness of data. So one thing to keep in mind, and this doesn't like, I'm not trying to discount the tool entirely. It's very valuable. These are just considerations that you should keep in mind when you're running tests. And first is that the data can flip throughout an experiment. So I've seen it where it's happening on a 4-week time frame, right? And then the data is consistent. And then when you start pushing it out over 4 weeks, sometimes the data will actually flip or it'll change. And this kind of makes sense, especially on lower traffic listings, right? This is just an experiment and it's doing its best to try to like maintain the protocols of the experiment. But like the longer of a time frame, the more accurate the data is going to be. So just something to keep in mind. Another really good example that I heard last week when I was in New York for ASGTG is I was talking to a guy from Oslam Group, and he was telling me that he had run an AA test, right? So if you think an A/B test is 2 different versions, an AA test is 2 of the exact same things. And for some peculiar reason, one of the versions had a 15% increase in unit session percentage. So when we were talking about it, that was only 2 weeks out of the 4 weeks into the experiment. I have to follow up and see if that maintained. But just keep in mind, right? Like, why does that should never happen, right? Like, there's no explanation for that. So just something to keep in mind. If you're seeing something that's super crazy, maybe don't say like, I'm going to go and without any consideration, apply this to all my listings and like go full force into this. Maybe like think about it first, right? And think, is if it's too good to be true, just be careful. And then I think this is the last thing on here is I hope we can expect to see more A/B testing features to be released in the future, right? So they started with A+, they moved to title, they moved to main image. I'm hoping one day that we're going to be able to see a way to test order of images in your gallery, right? We're learning more and more how the algorithm actually, there's a lot of weight that's placed on someone buying something and someone adding to the cart. Obviously, that's the highest, but we're also getting more information that actually how someone interacts with your product detail page is very important. And so I think they're going to start to realize that like, if you give sellers the ability to figure out which are the most important images and what is the order to display them in the gallery, that's what I'm hoping, or at least I have my fingers crossed. This is the last real point, is that obviously MYE is going to work better on larger accounts. Not only if you have more traffic to the listing are you going to get more reliable tests, but as well, and this is like great, and I think there's a lot of large sellers that come to this group or are going to watch the replay. It's really, really great if you're managing a large product catalog, right? And the reason why is, remember, these tests take a long time to run, 4 weeks. So you got to just sit and wait. But if you have like ASINs and all of these different children ASINs underneath, what can you do? Now you can start to test different versions of the main image. It's like you're testing within a very similar product portfolio, but you're testing slightly different concepts. And when you see a concept work well once, right, it's like, oh, we have a main image, but then we have 20 different color variations. If you see that one color, one version of the main image is working on one, there's a good chance it might work for those other children ASINs. So if you're managing a lot of different, a large portfolio, that's really important. Okay, this is the last real thing. I know for sure this is the last slide. But just another thing to keep in mind is a lot of sellers are really worried, like, well, what if I do this and I tank my listings, right? What if I do this and it goes in the wrong direction? Remember that being wrong is only at a single point in time, right? And so for me, when I'm testing, I'm not worried about like this, because yeah, sure, I might like drop my listing 25% from making a title error and I might have to like spend a few weeks to get it back up. But now I've figured that out, right? And so this is not only going to apply to this ASIN, I'm not going to make that mistake again on any other ASINs. And now I've learned that. But more importantly, when I get the gains, I'm also going to be able to apply those gains on my other ASINs. And as long as we can keep being right more than we're being wrong and get that going up over time, we've seen consistent ability of sellers to come in and get these single and even double-digit increases in unit session percentage and click-through rate from running these tests. And so the cool thing is, because these take so long, it's actually creating this natural kind of moat against your competitors, right? If you think right now it's May and we've got like 6-7 months until we get to until we get to the end of Q4, the people that have been running test after test after test after test, they've gained all of this knowledge. They've figured out what works for their brands. And then when you get to Q4, their competitor, they can't go and like do 6 months of testing in a week. It just can't happen. So that is what I'll say. Feel free to reach out at any time. And that's what I've got. Feel free to, I'm happy to answer any questions. And I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony, for the presentation and for explaining the experiments and giving some pretty good tips actually on how to make it better. Like I thought, like the idea, to put the really good hypothesis in there to try to push the boundaries of terms of service is actually a very good tip, because you might get a good competitive advantage through that. So if anybody has questions, post them in the chat. We also have quite a few questions lined up ourselves.
Maybe we're going to take Jana's question first from the chat. Let me try to read it to you. So Jana tried out the manage your experience split test several times while also doing PickFoo and others user testing, and the results have came out different. That's also what I wanted to ask you, the different results in different platforms. Amazon shows A is better, while external testing sites show B is better. Also, manage my experience results difference is usually quite little. So which one would you prefer and go for as a first choice?
Yeah. So this is definitely something that happens, and it's a really good question. So basically, it's like I use something like PickFoo to test my main image, and then I go run it and manage your experiments, and then the manager experiments is different. And so like I've had this happen to me. If you guys know Adam Runquist, he has a video on YouTube where he's doing this with one of his products and a few other PickFoo and other similar alternatives to PickFoo as well. And it's like exactly the opposite. And this was actually an example of a really big increase. I think it was like $60,000 or $70,000, right, of an increase. And so like, I love PickFoo. PickFoo is amazing, but PickFoo at the end of the day is not your audience. It's not the people who are actually buying the product. And where you'll use PickFoo incorrectly is if you go and upload two options of a main image that are similar, very similar, whatever, and you say, hey, which one of these images are you more likely to click on? Which one is better? Right? These people are just answering in a vacuum. They really don't, they don't have any reference or any context. Where you're going to get a lot more value out of it is if you're asking something based on a feeling or an emotion, and you're like, hey, which one of these images does a better job? Like, let's say you have like it's like one of those hula hoop workout, those hula hoop rings, right? It's like the workout rings, right? You put between your legs and you squeeze, right? It's important for someone to see like how that product works from a main image. And so if I'm going and instead of asking like, which main image do you prefer, which one of these images does a better job of showing how this Pilates ring works, right? And now it's like, I'm not asking which image someone prefers. I'm asking like, which one does a better job? Which one is going to click in your mind better, right? The other thing that PickFoo can be helpful for is if you're saying like, which one of these is the most eye catching, right? It's like, you're literally like, which one, if you're searching, which one catches your eye first? That's a fine test to ask, but that's like a fine question to ask. But like manager experiments at the end of the day, you're going to have to go by that, right? Like MYE, that's where the real data comes from. And so when I'm like working with clients, even in the past, like what I would always try to have them do is, even if I was creating a new version of the main image and I knew it was much better, I'm still always going to try to test it through MYE just to be sure, because that's the only way you're really going to know, like, did this actually help increase, you know, whatever the metrics I'm trying to improve are.
Thank you. That's great. Michael, do you want to take it away from here? I don't see any other questions at the moment. Maybe they're going to roll in soon.
Yeah. I guess like my biggest question is maybe that what would be valuable for the audience as well is like, based on the tests that you have seen and based on the tests that you have heard from, like, what do you feel or have you heard that is the, one thing that has worked the best, like one image type, for example, for main image, or something very specific for A+, or because you brought out several examples, but like, what is like this one thing, like if you only could do this one thing, like what type of image or what type of adjustment to the title or A+ content would you do to test out?
Yeah. So for main image, if you can do it in your product category, and I think a lot of product categories allow, what I was saying was eye candy, right? So like you're selling this dog hair trimmer, and instead of just selling the dog hair trimmer, you're showing the dog as well, right? And trying to optimize like what is the dog that people are going to look for most, right? If I'm selling like supplements and I want to show what the ingredients are, like some kind of like pop in addition to the color works very well if you can get away with it. And a lot of people do. The hack on that as well is like, you've got your main image and you have these bots that are going through and they're trying to find these main image violations. And what it's looking for is text in white space, right? And so if you're putting on this eye candy and it's disconnected from the product, then the bot is going to identify that as a decal and the main image is going to get suppressed. Versus if you connect that to the actual product itself, it's going to think it's all one object. And it's like, this is just the product. And so like, I've been giving this tip for a year, and I know that this works because people tell me at conferences, they're like, oh, I heard that tip and I did it on my listing, and then they show it to me. And it's the simplest thing. They're just like selling something and they're putting like a flower here. So I'm telling you that works. I don't think it's going to be like forever, but I also think that like Amazon, I don't know, because like if Amazon wanted to enforce it, they could. I think if you're thinking about what is going to make the better sense for the shopper, then that's going to be really, really good. So for main image, it would be adding eye candy. For title, you're just going to want to optimize for, there's like some way that the algorithm works, and there's a position in, order of what words, not order, but like what words need to be in your title, right? And so that's just like a mathematical approach. I'm not pitching Data Dive, but like just use Data Dive. And if it has more ranking juice in the title that you create in Battle of the Titles, right? People are rolling this out to their listings. That's definitely the best way to do it. Like optimize the title to see what's going to get the most ranking juice. And then for A+ content, it's like, I don't know. I think the best is probably just testing an alternate, which is way more graphic heavy, like very little text, almost all banners, like full size banners. And so most people still have a lot of text in their A+. Just go to your design and be like, I want something that's like all visual, and just see.
Yeah, that's a good addition. Actually, as far as the A+ goes, I wanted to ask one little thing. You mentioned brand story, adding that into the A+, and that would be like interesting thing to do. What have you seen, or what do you feel works best? Like start off the A+, like specifically with like what's in it for me benefits, like why the customer should buy, what they will get out of it, or with the brand story, because this is like a discussion that's been going on for actually quite a long time.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Like the answer is I don't know the answer, because more people need to test their alternates of their brand story and their A+. Because I don't actually know. I mean, I've seen in some examples that the brand story helps, and some examples where the brand story doesn't help. And so I think that's the whole point of manager experiments, is you can go and you can find out once and for all for your brand, for your product, does having the brand story help my sales or does it not help my sales? So I would test it. Yeah.
Okay. I remember I saw that you referenced to like using packages on the main image, and it's kind of not allowed in DOS. Is that going to go through when a like real human being has to accept your main image A/B test?
I'm not 100% sure, like the version of terms of service that are on all of the individual European marketplaces, but I know for certain that the terms of service in the US, like what it says word for word, is that the main image must not contain additional objects that are gratuitous or distracting. Like a lot of people have this thought that the terms of service says you can't have packaging or it needs to be the product on a white background. And it's just like, it doesn't say that at all. What Amazon is clearly doing is like, they're putting out a terms of service that's very broad because it's supposed, they want to have something that's very broad that covers like the hundreds of thousands, millions of products that are sold. And so us as sellers are supposed to make an independent decision on terms of what counts as gratuitous, what counts as distracting, right? And so obviously, like if we're putting like, oh, best deal ever, and it's like in a bright box, that's gratuitous, that's distracting, it doesn't add any value. Versus if I have packaging and it's really nice, and this is like an item that people would want to receive in packaging, or it's like a food product and it comes in a bag and it's sealable and it's zippable, and I can see from the first page of search results that this looks like a high quality product because I'm seeing the packaging, is that better for the customer, right? It's like, also think about this, like if you had a duvet cover for a bed, is it better for them to see the product on a white background or to actually see this thing rolled out on the bed so I can see what it looks like? So I hope I can clear that up a little bit, that like it's not anything that's against terms of service to put packaging in. We just have to make a decision about, is it gratuitous or distracting? And if you're leaning on the side that's legitimately going to be best for the customer, that's why Amazon, you can go in these different categories and see all of these, like what people would say are performance or these violations of main images, but Amazon's allowing it because like, you know, it all seems fine. It seems like it's, you know, for the best interest of the customer. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm kind of summarizing that up is that I still can put my unique selling propositions on the package and kind of try to display that next to the product itself, but I cannot use like, you know, extra deal or free things inside or like, you know, something very flashy, very like salesy, and that would not get approved.
Exactly. Like, you know, it's like, let's say you're selling a travel product, right? Do it in a classy way, right? Like your keyword might be like airplane neck pillow, right? And you can put like nice packaging, and then on the front of your packaging, you're like neck pillow or airplane neck pillow. And you can put like that keyword so people see it and it clicks, but make the packaging look nice. Don't say like best airplane neck pillow ever. I mean, and that probably still won't be enforced, but just try to think about like, are people going to consume this message in a way that makes it feel like it's a legitimate brand, or that you're just trying to shove this product down my throat and tell me how great it is? You know what I mean?
Yes, definitely. So if anybody has questions, now it's time to ask. Otherwise, next opportunity to pick Anthony's brain on like you have seen like hundreds and hundreds of case studies throughout your career. And I think like you're one of the most popular guys on a coffee break on any conference, just to pick your brain on like, you know, should I use pink or should I use green or should I tilt it or should I have it horizontal? I think you're gonna be like tired of talking in any conference. So it's just.
Oh no, I love it. It's super. I'm excited to get out there, and yeah, it's super fun. It's been a while.
That's so good to hear. So anybody who's listening here and you are from Finland, the reason for us to reach out to you is that we wanna build a community with you, together with you, get to know you. There are lots of 7, 8, 9-figure sellers. In the conference, also based in Estonia, we are so close to each other. There is lots of value in sharing experience. So we are warmly welcoming you, and use the code to Finland for 20% off from your conference ticket. It's next Saturday. We do have sauna. Finns love sauna. Anthony, are you going to come to the sauna as well?
I will be there. Yeah. I'm so excited.
Come on, that's a must thing to have.
Absolutely.
So the sauna is on the waterfront, and you can jump. Yeah, you can jump straight to the water and do all the stuff that we do as well.
All the crazy stuff. I'm sure the Finns know how to do sauna properly. So join us in for the conference on next Saturday, where Anthony is gonna take 30 or more case studies into small elements, and we can all learn and avoid expensive mistakes on our main images and what. So not just to hit it right on the first time, and so we wouldn't need to test it so vigorously starting from the zero. So I guess this is a wrap up right now.
Well, actually, Anthony, I actually have a question for you. So basically, in your position where you see a lot of data, so I mean, what kind of changes are you expecting the be there on Amazon? I mean, in the future.
One more time. What kind of
like what kind of changes do you see that there is going to be happening on Amazon in the future?
I think just kind of what's already been happening, that it's just going to get way more serious, right? We were talking earlier on the call back. I mean, you started selling in 2014. I got into it like maybe 2017, right? And so it's like back then you could do anything, right? Like you could really win with a very minimal strategy, very disorganized operation, kind of putting different pieces, a lot of freelancers. Now everything's getting a lot more serious. This whole industry is going to get way, way more serious. And in order to succeed on Amazon, you can't just succeed in like 3 out of 5 categories. You really have to be proficient in 5 out of 5 categories. And that's just to like make it, right? To do well, you really have to kind of be a rock star, bring some kind of X factor if you really want to get to that level. And so, that's why like stuff like this is going to be more important, because back in the day, you could win without touching manager experiments. You just had to figure out one part of optimization. But now you really have to, hit all avenues. So just being, if you can't do it yourself, building out teams to help you do it,
Absolutely. Seems like testing, back in 2017 when me and Mikkel, I think Mikkel, you even started 1 year earlier than me. Testing wasn't really something to do, but right now seems like testing is definitely something you need to do. It seems almost like a hygiene. You can't go without it.
It's kind of like the evolution of the platform has just been like Amazon in the beginning wanted to all these sellers, really inviting third-party sellers just to fill up all the products on the platform. Once they had all the products on the platform, now it's like we want them to be better products. We want more brands. And now we're getting into this part where it's like we really want mature brands. We really want like every product to be really, really well optimized. And so it's just getting into this maturity phase. And how Amazon works is it's just a big math equation, right? It's like everyone says, we're not selling products, we're selling keywords, right? It's just people are searching for something, we're giving people what they're looking for, and we're building brands around search volume, right? And so it makes sense that as the program, as the, everything matures, it's going to be more and more based on just math numbers. Like people are searching for this. Are they getting to your page? Are they buying based on these words? And so that's where the testing comes in.
Would you say using testing as a really smart tool would help a seller to gain leverage against grandfathered product that have like maybe 100,000 reviews? Would that be something, at least some tool to go against those sellers as well?
I mean, it absolutely happens. And I think Amazon supports it, right? Because like a few years ago, they created this whole honeymoon phase, right? Where it's like, we're going to let new sellers be tested against real big sellers that are grandfathered in, because if a new seller can outperform them, then they deserve to be there just as much. And so I think that's like the whole thing. That's why all of this works, right? That's why there's people who might be on this call that are new sellers, and there's still hope for you, right? Like you don't have to worry if someone has 100,000 reviews, because if you can outperform on like unit session, if you can basically do a better job than they are, then it might not be instant, but over a period of time, you're going to keep going up in your rank until you get there, if you can maintain it.
Yeah, and I like what you said, that basically the terms of service that they're like deliberately they are vague, because they cannot cover like every single like millions of products that there are on Amazon. So, and it's kind of like Amazon has always the point of like Jeff Bezos has been about customer experience. So I mean, it's all about the customer experience. So if you basically align our like values as well, that okay, we want to deliver the best customer experience with our products, then I mean, I think that will actually just go a long way in serving our customers.
Yeah, and the thing look, this is coming from someone who used to work at Amazon, right? Like Amazon doesn't care at all about sellers, and they've made that super clear. They're not, and people get mad about Amazon doing things that hurt sellers, and they're super surprised. Like Amazon's made it very clear that they don't care about sellers. And if you've ever gone to an Amazon conference, like the ones that Amazon puts on, it's a joke, right? And like you go and ask questions to their employees about like, how do these things work? And they don't even know. These conferences are infinitely better. So the thing is, like, us as sellers have to be big boys and girls and make independent decisions about our business based on a lot of ambiguity, right? Like that's the whole point.
Absolutely. Tony, I do have a question to you. You're a longtime seller yourself. Do you remember out of your head what has been the best test experience for you? Is it picture-based, headline-based?
Oh no, that's for Tony.
Yeah, because Tony is a real seller, and I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
how can he
Well-
relate to the testing topic?
It definitely has been like images, because I mean that's the main thing, like what like captures the attention, because I mean people cannot like touch those products, or so it's all about like the images. Like typically the first thing is the price that you might see, and then I mean it's comes down to images. So I would say that this number one thing is images.
Okay, so we should, like a new seller, they shouldn't go crazy on testing everything, just start out of images, and that's gonna get you like, 80-20 results. That's where it's gonna come from.
Yeah, personally I would start from there.